Okay, we're off, so pick a section, any section, it doesn't matter, and what you need to do first of all is have a look at what fabrics you're using for that section. So I'm starting here, and I know that that's going to be in my dark blue, so I'm going to take a piece of that fabric, and what you can do at this stage if you need to is hold the paper to the light and put the fabric behind it so that you can tell that you've definitely got enough coverage for that. And then you're going to cut a piece of the fabric, cut it down a little bit, leaving at least 1/4 inch around the shape that you're aiming to cover up. So now I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut. You don't need to use a ruler at this point, you're just rough cutting. I'm cutting that section, and I'm going to see again that I know that's definitely going to cover it. And then I'm also going to cut the section of my next fabric, L2, and ensure it will cover that. When you're working with an angle, it's slightly more difficult than a straight edge, so always be very generous with the amount of fabric that you cut. Especially when you're starting out, be kind to yourself. So I'm going to cut a piece that's plenty big enough. I'm also going to remove the selvage just in case that ends up where I don't want it. So I've now got the 2 pieces of fabric, and what I do is I'm going to fold the line between the first piece and the second piece, and that's where this piece of card or your ruler comes in handy, because it's flat, so you can put it up to the line and fold on it like so. I folded on the line between 1 and 2. This is the first line that I'm going to stitch. You then build it up in order as you move along. I've cut fabric that I know is going to cover those areas. So the next step is now to flip this paper over to the other side and put my first piece of fabric covering the area underneath. And your fabric at this stage is right side up. So it feels a little counterintuitive, but once you get into the rhythm, you'll get used to it. You're sewing the pattern with the fabric the right side up. So in order to secure this, because you're going to be flipping this over the other way to sew it, this is where the glue pen can come in handy, because you can just simply fold this back and pop a little spot of glue on there to keep that in position. If you don't have a glue pen, then you could also pin it. And what you're then going to do is turn it back over, fold the line you've just created between 1 and 2, and then you're going to trim this seam allowance here to 1/4 inch, which actually doesn't look like I'm far off there, but you could have a bigger piece of fabric at this stage. So you line the ruler up 1/4 inch on the edge and cut that excess away. Believe me, it gets easier when you've done this a few times to remember the order in which to do it, and in the booklet with the pattern it's under our golden rules section, so you've also got a reference there all the time. So now I've got that seam allowance, I'm going back over and I'm now going to position the fabric that I know is going to cover number 2 with the right sides together this time, so that when that is stitched and flipped back, my right sides are facing upwards. If you want to pin here at this point, you can do. You wouldn't glue now because this is the outside of your finished pattern, but if you don't want them to move till you get to the sewing machine, pop a little pin through, and then you're now ready to go to the machine and stitch the line between 1 and 2. And what we recommend is that you start 1/4 inch before the line, stitch along the line and finish 1/4 inch afterwards. You don't have to do a reverse, just give yourself a little bit of room either side of the line. So off we go to the machine.